Right about now, everyone is asking themselves, is 10th edition going to make everything better? We are here to answer this question with the information given to us at Adepticon 2023 and the Warhammer Preview Online. My name is ePlash and this is Empire of Wargames. Alright, so as I said in the previous video, we are going to go over a video series and we are going to go over all the rules changes that GW has announced during the Adepticon Warhammer Preview Online. There's a lot to take in here, so I wanted to make a video series rather than just ham-fisting everything into one video, so everything is digestible and understandable, because me just throwing information at you is not going to help anyone, and I want you to understand everything correctly, then do your own research, and then hopefully leave a comment of your thoughts, what you think about the changes. Think a little bit about everything, look at your army, your current lists, and then hopefully give feedback, not just to me, but maybe also on Twitter or something to the Warhammer team, so they know what to expect from the community, at least when it comes to first impressions, and yeah, to the first reception of all the changes, all the new information and all that stuff, because there was a lot to take in. So let's go over everything one by one, and we are starting with the first video, the basics. Alright, so the basics video is meant to give you all the base information you need to know about 10th edition, and we are going to go in depth in future videos. So if you're interested in those, subscribe to the channel and give a thumbs up so I know you're interested. But the most crucial information I can give you right now is that the rules are going to change fundamentally, and there are going to be indices or indexes that are going to update the rules, the stats, the data sheets, weapon rules, everything for all the factions at the same time on release day of 10th edition. By the way, no one knows when that is going to be exactly. The rumors say that it's going to be July or June, but yeah, it's sometime during summer. That is what is confirmed. Now, what that means with the indexes is that you shouldn't buy codexes. It is as simple as that. Unless you like them for their lore and for their cool artwork, there's literally no reason to buy a codex. And if you bought one very, very recently, I'm talking, I don't know, maybe in the past week or two, and if you can give them back or refund them, I would probably do so, as I said, unless you like the artwork and you just want to keep it. So yeah, codexes are completely going to lose their value, the current ones, once 10th edition arrives. Everything for 10th edition when it comes to rules, points, and I think the app as well is going to be free. But later on, there are going to be codexes. So everyone who thought that all the rules are going to stay free for all eternity, that is definitely not the case. That was clarified. And the rules are going to get replaced one by one, similar to what happened in 8th edition. And codexes are going to completely replace what is in the index. So the game is not going to get more complex. At least that is what GW tells us. But rather the rules from the index are one-to-one going to get replaced with the codex. So you still have those 2 pages you need for your army and those couple of data cards or war scrolls from Age of Sigmar in front of you basically, and that is everything you need to play the game and understand your army, and that is literally everything you need for your opponent to know, besides your list of course. So yeah, GW is trying to make an effort to simplify everything, and that is definitely something positive. And I'm hopeful that with the new codexes arriving and the promise of not overcomplicating things as time goes on is going to be kept, because that is the most problematic thing that happened from 8th edition all the way to the end of 9th edition, where we are now, where the game got more and more complicated. So yeah, I hope they keep that. When it comes to power level though, I'm going to remain skeptic, because we had a lot of kind of investor meetings and we could read a couple of things about them and heard comments, and it's just a fact that power crap codices are selling more copies. And yeah, I'm fully expecting that Warhammer is going to power creep its way up a little bit when it comes to the progression of 10th edition and maybe later even 11th edition, but I hope the complexity is going to stay roughly the same. One last thing to add here when it comes to the updates and free rules, Forge World is included in all of that. They announced that during the stream, so if you want to run all your Forge World models because they're legitimately cool looking models, you can definitely do that, and you can expect all the numbers, all the points, all the rules to be available day one. So another part of that entire announcement is that there's going to be a new Warhammer 40,000 app. I don't think the model of how to use it is going to change too much. I think the basic indices or indexes are going to be free in there, and you will be able to use the app for free during that time period. But as soon as a codex arrives, I think they are going to keep the same model as it is now, where you'll find a code in the back of the book. You will enter the code, and then you have access to all the models and all the special rules that are contained within a deck codex. So yeah, when it comes to the app and them saying it works, quote unquote, I'll believe it when I see it, and it has to be really, really convincing, because if it costs additional money, which it will at some point with the new codexes, it has to offer something more than current offerings that are free on the market. So they don't just need to have an app that works, but they actually need to have an app that is beyond anything that is free on the market right now for me to consider it, at least personally. I can understand that a lot of you are probably feel a little bit better about just using the official thing from Games Workshop, but I personally, they just need to convince me when it comes to really investing into an app that is going to require me to buy all the codexes if I wanted to have all the information. And that app is then going to, or all the stuff I bought is going to get obsolete within 3 or 4 years once 11th edition arrives. So yeah, they need to do a lot of convincing here. Now, when it comes to the more complicated information I thought about and digesting all of those information, let me give you an example. We were talking about codexes, and the codexes are not what you would technically expect them to be if you know 9th edition codexes. The new codexes are going to be mainly lore and fluff and cool artworks, and the basic rules for your army and the data cards and everything are probably going to stay free. That's how I understood it. Now, the rules you can expect within a codex are faction-wide rules. So basically, the page spread they talked about that you need to have open next to your couple of data cards of units you're using in your game. And those army-wide rules, like for example, the first company of the Ultramarines, Imperial Fist rules, and so on, the faction-wide rules, the stratagems of those are going to be in the codexes and updated and so on. But obviously all the units are going to stay free because they are available for free right now, and they are going to keep updating those. So yeah, you'll even be able to print those out as far as I've heard. So yeah, the codexes are going to change a little bit in their structure and in their usefulness, but you're still going to need them if you want to have all the rules and all the updates within your app. Alright, so if you watched the live stream or read the Warhammer community article, you know that a lot of stuff is changing when it comes to the rules of the game. And as I said, we're going to go more in depth on all of those in future videos. You've probably seen the new Termagant datasheet. They are kind of equivalent to War Scrolls from Age of Sigmar, and they are meant to give you all the relevant information on one single data card. That is going to reduce the stuff you need to take with you on tournaments or wherever you're going to play, because at that point, as I said previously, all you need is that one page or page spread, I assume it's 2 pages actually, of army-wide rules, and the couple of data cards that your army actually uses. And that is basically all you need to play your faction, at least at the release of 10th edition. Other than that, everything else remains. So toughness is still there, strength is still there, so it's not the Age of Sigmar format. There are new rules like objective control, which is a great addition. And I've actually made videos like 6 months ago talking about the changes I would like to see for 10th edition, and a lot of these changes have made it into actual 10th edition. Now, I'm not arrogant enough to think that my changes have been looked at and they have kind of used them as kind of a reference point for their rules changes or anything. I'm not that naive, but it's cool to see that my way of thinking about Warhammer 40,000 and its design and the rules is very similar to the Warhammer design team. And I have huge respect for those guys. So yeah, it's cool to see. Other than that, they have talked about the turn structure where there's no psychic phase anymore. Morale tests are going to be taken at the start of the turn as battle shock. And if you fail that test, units are not, or models are not going to run away, but rather your unit is going to take debuffs. And if you keep failing those debuffs are going to get worse. So yeah, that has changed completely. I'm very curious to see how Night Lords are going to field after all these changes, because Night Lords have insane kind of commitment towards the whole morale thing. So I'm very curious to see how that works out. Other than that, there are still a lot of changes. Lethality is going down by a significant margin. Overcharged plasma, there are some units, mostly vehicles and monsters probably, that even overcharged plasma is only going to wound on a 5+, which is great actually. I really would like to have more models on the table on turn 5 than 10, which is usually the case. I have very little models alive by turn 5, and if it's a hyper competitive environment, usually the game is decided by turn 3. So yeah, I'm glad to see that. Other than that, yeah, as I said, phases completely changed. Psychic phase is gone. Psychic abilities are now baked into the datasheet, similar to Age of Sigmar. So Smite is a psychic shooting attack basically, and is rather simplified, but still does mortal wounds and all that stuff. Stratagems and relics are also baked in on that one page or page spread for your army. So everything is going to be simplified. An army is going to have or kind of a sub-faction is going to have 6 stratagems in total. That is an average, at least that was mentioned in the video. So I expect them to be between 5 and 8 probably. So it's not going to be too many, especially compared to 9th edition or right now. It is a drastic cut down. When it comes to basic stratagems, that number is going to go up, understandably, because the turn structure, while it has changed when it comes to psychic phase and so on, it will not change when it comes to the base line of it. So it's still, I take a turn, you take a turn, I take a turn, you take a turn, and that's basically it. But how they want to kind of counteract that is via the Age of Sigmar way, funnily enough, which is reactive abilities, reactive stratagems, and a way to still be engaged and play the game while your opponent's turn is currently happening. So that is an excellent way to counteract that way, because while I think that altering actions and kind of altering activation would have been a cool thing to have, it is also very complicated to keep track of with 2000 points games and kind of 20 units possibly that you need to manage, keep an eye on, put a counter next to because you already activated them. Can they still react? How does it work? I prefer the way it is here. It's still, I take a turn, you take a turn, but if you are taking your turn, I still am engaged, I can still do actions, I still have reactive stratagems, and I'm still taking part in the game and I can do things. Now, one last thing on the topic of codexes is that they will also have digital offerings of codexes again. As far as I understood that means they are going to be ebooks or PDFs. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what it sounded like to me. And they will sell the data sheets similar to what Age of Sigmar is doing with their War Scrolls, where you can basically buy a deck of all the cards that you need and of all the data sheets that are available to your army, and you'll have everything available and ready for you without having to constantly flip between your codex and codex supplement and FAQs and all that stuff. But that is probably something that GW is not going to be immune against, so expect FAQs and additional tournament books and stuff for competitive play and all the updates to be there as well. So hopefully all of that is going to get constantly updated with the digital releases of all these kinds of books and the app and everything. But when it comes to the physical release, there's obviously little GW can do. Alright, another thing I wanted to mention when it comes to the basics that are good to know about 10th edition is the list building. The list building has been significantly simplified. It already was simple with the Arcs of Omen changes, but now all you need is a Warlord and that's it. Other than that, you are still bound by the rule of 3, which basically means if you want to include something 3 times, like for example, I don't know, crisis suits, you can only do that 3 times. For your troops, the limit is 6. Now, a lot of people have already been voicing concerns when it comes to these limitations because, for example, Imperial Guard players would like to run more than 60 Cadians. Now, there are a lot of ways that GW can deal with this and manage it. For example, one way, and the simplest way, would be to just up the unit size limit from 10 to 20 or even 30 if you pay the points. But then it's going to get a little bit complicated to maneuver them around, at least in my opinion. Or the other way is to just give the units different names. So for example, you don't just have Cadian shock troops, you also have Kasrkin, you have Tempestus, you have an infantry squad, and they are all different data sheets, and those allow you to then run as many infantry units as you want, but they are slightly different, at least apart from the 60 you are going to mainly run, like for example shock troops, which I think both are fine ways to deal with it, and I wouldn't be concerned about that at all. Alright, and the last thing I wanted to talk about is kind of what people can expect from an edition change, because we've gotten a lot of new players during 9th edition, like a lot. So if you've never been part of a huge kind of new edition change, and I'm talking from 7th to 8th, for example, not from 8th to 9th, this is nothing to be kind of concerned about. Your army is probably going to work the same way as it does now in 10th edition as well, because you are still tied to the rule of 3, which is already a thing now. I wouldn't panic. A lot of people tend to not buy models whenever a new edition is on the horizon, which is smart, but nothing you have to concern yourself with. That is just kind of competitive talk, if that makes sense. Because a lot of people are not as reactive and not as quick of a painter to just really quickly buy something whenever something new releases, like 10th edition, for example, and make a competitive list out of nowhere. A lot of people like to paint their models. They're expensive after all. And yeah, if you're new to the hobby, or if you're just kind of looking for armies and how to look at 10th edition in a broad kind of way, just don't panic. You know, buy the models that you find cool. Don't buy a codex. That is kind of the hard rule. Don't buy a codex because it is not going to be relevant in 10th edition. And just take it easy. Embrace change. Change is good, as a famous League character said. And yeah, just take it easy. There's a lot to digest. This video is just me explaining the basics, and we are going to go into a lot more detail when it comes to rules, rule design, and so on in the next coming videos. So yeah, take it easy, lean back, and there's actually nothing to worry about. Nothing you're going to be painting right now, or nothing you're going to be building or assembling or planning for is going to be obsolete all of a sudden. Just do your thing, and it's going to be fine for 10th edition as well. So with that, I hope I could give you a basic overview of 10th edition. Obviously, there's a lot of my opinion in there, but it kind of has to, because we are talking about design, and I want to give you my thoughts on everything. And if you have thoughts of your own, if you have anything to comment about, anything that worries you about 10th edition, or if you like the changes, please let me know in the comments below, as it helps me to gauge your interest in 10th edition and to figure out what I should be talking about when it comes to specifically the rules, the new data sheets, objective control, all that stuff that we can go really in depth on. And yeah, just let me know what you think. Other than that, I hope this was insightful, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.